Welcome to How to Trust Your Intuition, the podcast, the place where we learn that trust is earned and not given, even with ourselves. I'm your host, Betsy LaFay. I'm a social worker, turned award-winning psychic medium, turned intuition teacher. And my school, Trust Yourself Intuition School, celebrated its 10th anniversary in 2023. Join us each episode as we interview thought leaders and luminaries in every genre. They talk about how and when they learn to trust their intuition. Most say they're still learning. What happens when they do trust it, and what happens when they don't. Stick around as we all walk together down the road towards trusting our intuition. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of How to Trust Your Intuition. Today's episode is a little different. It actually harkens back to season 1, where I was cold coaching people. I absolutely love doing that and love doing that style of podcast. The truth is that it's just hard to organize and gather the willing participants. If anyone out there is like, yo, I'll be your free intern, let's do it. Contact me. We'll do it. Today, we have Paeton on the show. Paeton is not a stranger to me. She's been a student for over a year, and now she is a coaching client, and she helps to write on the show. You have not necessarily seen any of her work yet, but you will very soon. Very excited to share that with you and excited to have her on the team. Whee! There's so much that I want to share about the topic today, but I will keep it short because it's better to demonstrate it than to tell you, because I've been trying to figure out ways to share this information, which is so potent and so joyous and so life-changing. But this demonstration with Paeton, I think, is the best way. I'm grateful, Paeton. Thank you so much for doing this with me and being so vulnerable, for sure, because we're talking about dating, and she's just for reals. What we get to hear in this episode is going from a place of having good things happen and bad things happen and good things happen and bad things happen to understanding why that happens and then being able to jujitsu that to another level. And that's one of the, quote, secrets to my success. I don't want it to be a secret. I'm holding up a book on video. If you're just on audio, you're missing my bow tie, by the way. But this is called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. So much is explained in here. I definitely take this and use it in my everyday life, use it in my teachings, and then expand upon it. I'll put a link in the show notes to what I call Rainbow Breath, formerly called Rainbow Hour. It is taking Gay Hendricks' primary tool and just expanding it a little bit. What you'll hear in today's show also explains why one of my proudest moments is in the midst of a big launch, having this tenacious, verbose, intrusive troll on the internet and having my team find out about it and celebrate. This is all without me knowing. So in other words, the public was being targeted, and also there were videos that were targeting me. Then my team found out, and nobody let me know about it because they just followed my teachings. Report, block, forgive, delete, move on, no drama. My whole community followed my teachings. So much so that I didn't even know about it until it was over. My team of 5 at the time found out about it, and they know about, because I taught them about this upper limit. So the upper limit says, when you reach a certain level, light, joy, ease, comfort, money, something internally or externally will come to try to tempt you to come back down to the level that you're used to, so that you're more anxious. If you want to be more calm, something will come in to tempt you to be more anxious, or internally or externally. So that when I, or my team and I, or whoever it is we're together with, come up against a time where We're going to be more happy. We're going to be more connected. We're going to be more calm. We're going to be more abundant, whatever it is, powerful. We know that something's going to happen. In this case, it's the trolls. Every time a troll comes, oh my gosh, I celebrate it. And what's cool about that, this is a big secret, which I want everyone to know, is that if you celebrate trolls, they will not come after you after a while, because it's the exact opposite of what they're after. So I'm not dogging on or trying to be better than. I want to give this tool to everyone. One of the things I've seen is with the fake accounts, trying to book readings for people or whatever. And usually the tactic that I see is the person will put it in their stories and pin it. And this is my only account. And I will never talk this way. And I don't do this. And I don't do that. Don't. Blah, 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 right. And even just the energy behind it. Right. But this is just, that's what they want. That is what the trolls want. So I know ahead of time when I'm having a big launch or something, I will reach wild things. I will give you a short list without getting into it. I would love to tell you the ins and outs of these stories, but I want you to listen to the Paeton episode. So I knew I was in the middle of a launch this past week and a half. So I knew stuff was happening. Did I know what was going to happen? No, I didn't know, but I knew crazy shit was going to happen. Here's a short list. A quote unquote well-intentioned neighbor decided to bring an Amazon package over, which they did not need to do because I have a picture of where it is. It's just on the next door. It's not even next door. It's on the same property. But instead of like a regular mail person or Amazon delivery person or any other person and just like leave you on the stoop, this person decided to look in my window and start to say my name over and over again. Not only rude, but really big, understandably so. C-PTSD trigger, plus I've already told her twice. My friends do not do pop-ins because they know about it. I love pop-ins. I know someday soon, in fact, stuff is changing. I can have pop-ins again, but right now it's not okay. It's not acceptable. So she has my number. It took me about 18 hours to really get my nervous system back on track. And I know that that is fine and acceptable with where I am. I had this really crazy bike accident where my front fender went into my wheel and my bike fell on top of me. It's a 70-pound bike. And luckily I was wearing a helmet because it basically fell on my head and like crushed the helmet, but not my head. I walked away with nearly no scratches, but I got a bunch of bruises. I found a second face cyst. I'm pointing to on YouTube. I know that it's completely benign and all that, but it's still a hole in my face and is healing, and it's wild. And I had a long-term relationship with a client go sideways kind of out of nowhere. Really shocking, really difficult. Also, it was on the blue moon. So all of this in the span of 1 week, there was great things and other things that I can't mention now that I will mention later. I don't want to bore you with the details, but I knew this crazy shit was going to happen. So when I had that crazy bike accident, I was shocked that I didn't break anything, and I literally had the tiniest scratch on. The next day, I didn't really have any bruises just yet. So I was like, what the F? The face thing, the client thing, like, was it easy? No, but I was prepared. And the thing about, let's say, psychic medium readings, which I've been doing professionally for 15 years or whatever, is the benefit of it is like, if you know that the next 2 miles of your road is going to be insane and full of potholes and rocky, but after those 2 miles, it's going to be smooth sailing, your experience of those 2 miles is going to be different. So in those 2 miles, you can feel the shittiness of it. For me, I probably would be white knuckling it, going really, really slow. But again, if I knew it was only 2 miles, I might not be white knuckling it. I might be going 1 mile per hour and enjoying the ride. So let's talk about doing that in real life. Check out Rainbow Breath and enjoy my conversation, my amazing and vulnerable conversation with Paeton. Again, thank you, Paeton, for everything.
Okay. So lead. I have been excited about the session since we heard of this incident that we will be digesting today. And I'm excited to do this. Is a little out of the ordinary of what I do, but we have my mentee here, Paeton, and she brought a unique to her, definitely, situation in dating. However, there's certain aspects about it that are universal. And so I'm really excited to help you, Paeton, today. And thank you for coming. And I'm also excited to help the watchers or the people who watch us that can really understand what happens to them in dating life when similar things happen. So thank you, Paeton, for letting us record this and going through this process. I really
You're so welcome. It is my absolute pleasure.
Okay, so let's start with what the heck happened. Maybe start with the date.
Got it. Yeah. So broad strokes about the date. He asked me out over Instagram. And so we decided to go out to dinner. It was, just to sum it up, not right in very many ways. I didn't feel respected. I didn't feel I felt judged. And it just wasn't good. Didn't seem like a fit. So we had that date. We went on we had that dinner. We went on a walk after the dinner, continued to not feel great about it. Then we decided to part ways. I decided not to make a second date. He did indicate interest in a second date, and I said that we would talk. We didn't end up making that second date. He messaged me when I got around the time I got home. He asked me to let him know when I got home safe, and I did. And he said something about the date being fun, and I didn't respond. I was planning on sending him a message very clearly stating that we were not going to be moving forward. That sounds so much like I work in HR, and that sounds so HR-y. Yes, but we were not going to be moving forward together. But before I got around to doing that, it was the next day. Had a very full day. Had a nail appointment, a tattoo appointment. Was meeting a friend for a movie. Fantastic day planned. Oh my goodness. So I get my nails done. I have a coffee. I already got the tattoo, I guess. Yes, I had already gotten the tattoo, and I had a bunch of time to kill in between the tattoo appointment. By the way, it's this kitty cat with a heart for a tail. I had like 2.5 hours to kill between the tattoo appointment and meeting my friend. And I realized that there was this amazing park nearby, and that I could cut through it to get to this bookstore that I love very much, the Strand. Amazing bookstore. And so I decided to take the route through the park, and the weather is fantastic. I'm wearing this cute little dress. I just feel full of life. And I'm walking through, and I barely make it into the park, honestly, Betsy, before I notice standing right in front of me is this man that I was on a date with the night before, along with his dog. And I noticed him before he noticed me, probably about 1.5 seconds before he noticed me. And in that 1.5 seconds, I was trying to figure out how I could slink away unnoticed, but it was not enough time. And he noticed me, and I said hi, and we were, kind of freaking out because we were, one, nowhere near where we had gone on the date. Two, I mean, it was just it was a massive like coincidence to see each other 2 days in a row, less than 24 hours apart. We had made no plans. And we were just like kind of astounded and just expressing our astonishment over and over again. And he said that he also was killing time in between things before he was going to go meet with a friend. And so he asked me to walk with him to the dog park because there's a dog park in that area. And I'm going to be honest with you, Betsy, against my better judgment, did go to that dog park. I didn't want to hang out with him at all, but I people pleased my way into that dog park. And ended up sitting with him for 5 minutes. And in that space of 5 minutes, he did manage to neg me and call me unoriginal and accuse me of basically being basic, which is so weird because that's not something that I care or think even remotely about. Yeah. But he and at a certain point, after that 5 minutes, I was like, well, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna head to the bookstore because 1, I wanted to get out of there. 2, I really wanted to go to the bookstore. Yeah. And he seemed surprised that I was choosing to leave. He was under the impression that we were gonna spend a few hours together. And I was like, yeah, gotta get out of here. And I'll preface what I'm gonna say next by mentioning that we did on the date express a mutual appreciation for dark humor. I will say that. Now I'm going to let you know that as I was leaving, he said something, this isn't like exactly verbatim, but it's basic. What he said was, well, I'm not a murderer, but if I see you again, I'm going to kill you. And I said, not if I kill you first. And then I got up and I walked out of that dog park and I continued to walk. And I was very shaken. I was upset. That was not something that I wanted to hear, that I felt was appropriate for him to say. And I went on to enjoy the rest of my day. I enjoyed the rest of my time in the park. I went to the other side of the park, found some like really awesome things to take in and enjoy. There were some young people dancing. There were arts, and crafts being sold and stuff like that. So I wanted to enjoy that. But I was, for the remainder of the day and night, like low level, anxious, upset. I did not, unfortunately, go back to like the blissed out state that I was in before I ran into that guy. But that's the story of that. I'm still alive and we're exploring what that means.
I'm really glad that you clarified that you're still alive, Paeton, because I do talk to dead people, so sometimes I may not know.
When I graduated with a BA in psychology in 2002, attachment work was only applied to children. Now, in 2023, it seems to be all the rage for a reason, because knowing your attachment type, there are 3 main types: avoidant, anxious, and secure, really changes your life. And if you listen to the podcast where I talked about how I lost $100,000 from a spiritual, quote unquote, spiritual coach, the silver lining to that experience was me discovering the root of a lot of my issues. I was anxiously attached. I had anxious attachment. At the very end of that terrible, terrible situation, yes, it was traumatic, I came across Maya Diamond's work. And it was working through her program that literally rewired my brain from anxious to secure. This is how I made it through all of my major transitions over the past 2 years and discovered so much about myself. Now, if you don't know about attachment work, don't feel bad. Here's a typical situation, in fact, the most common situation that happens with these attachment styles. Person A and person B are in a relationship. They care about one another. Person A reaches out to person B, doesn't hear back right away. So then maybe sends another text or another gesture, which further pushes person B away. Both people get resentful, and eventually they might break up. I was in that situation more often than I'd like to remember. I married the wrong person, I had toxic family relationships, and had no idea until I took Maya's program. So, the link for a free consultation is in the show notes, and I'm so happy to offer it all the podcast listeners. If you sign up for her program, you will get a free session worth $500 with Maya Diamond herself, one-on-one. That's just for How to Trust Your Intuition podcast listeners. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. And I just want to say, I could say so many things, but what I want to share right now is when you said, people please my way right into that dog walk, I heard like the audience go, oh, but only because they know viscerally what that defeat feels like. So myself included. I'm like getting red face, like talking about it, right? So I'm just gonna say, like, again, like, thank you for sharing certain aspects of this that are universal. All right, so before we move forward, let's first talk about what did you conclude from that? Now, I'll say you came to me. We're in a relationship where I'm helping you, right? Mentor, mentee. And you came to me and you're like, whoa, this happened. Holy cow, why? So I'll just completely say, like I said before you're taping, like, yeah, you came to me like, I don't know why. That's a great, neutral, curious place. That is one of the most beautiful places. And I'm asking you now, if you had any thoughts, if you had 10 thoughts about what it could mean or why, including maybe he would want to kill you, which I will say is like definitely like on my mind. Okay. So like, it's not just you. So what was, we'll first go over like what actually was on your mind, and then we'll sort of extrapolate of what other people might be feeling.
Yeah. So what was on my mind in the moment, and also say hi to Orla.
Yeah, she's so cute. I was literally looking at her.
In the moment, I would say for maybe about 5 seconds, particularly, absolutely before he made that comment about wanting to murder me, I considered the possibility that this meant that I needed to go on a date with him again. That did enter my mind.
Wait, wait, for the first 5 seconds of what? When you first ran into him, you said?
The right? Very first moment I ran into him, no. Okay. The first moment was just like, get here. And then we passed that, unfortunately, because I was spotted. And yeah, initially I was really uncomfortable and I wanted to leave. I wanted to leave and not be next to him every moment I was next to him before he said that nonsense.
Right. And then you laughed and you're shocked, right? And you're like, what does this mean? So what were some of the answers that sort of like ran through your head about like, what would this mean at the time? I mean, like, or after, as you're processing. In other words, my response to you was like, oh, I'm so excited to dive in with you, but I have to do my job. And I have to say, would you mind tuning in yourself first, and we'll digest that. So what I'm asking is, like, in between the time when you wrote me, what could this mean? And before you tuned in yourself, what were some of the like explanations?
Before I tuned in myself.
Before you tuned in yourself, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm very proud of myself for not jumping to, this is actually my first time considering this, but I'm very glad that I didn't jump to, well, I'm being punished for people pleasing when I shouldn't have, because that's the type of self-criticism that in the beginning of my journey with you and with Trust Yourself would definitely come to me, would definitely occur to me. Like, I brought this on. I attracted this. I manifested seeing this guy again that I didn't want to see. But that didn't even, like, we're a year on, and that didn't even occur to me. And so I'm
we have to pause here because I'm so glad you brought that up. Two things. I was going to ask you about how long it's been. Yeah, it's about a year. And I'm already so excited for you because I've told you this many times, and students this, just because it took me this long to get to this level of trust, right? X amount of years, which is like longer than I think maybe people should be taking trust yourself. I don't know. It doesn't mean that it will take you that long. Okay. And what you have arrived to, which is that shift is absolutely phenomenal, because let's just pause there with what possibilities either former you or former me or other people listening. And I'm going to bring it to an intense place, extreme place, but it's also a common place, where, and it's true too, where certain religions, sometimes even karma, for instance, a lot of spiritual or new age teachings will teach you that you attracted it. And so what this actually does in a lot of relationships, a lot of either and or, right? So you can take one of these or you can take a combination of these, right? Toxic relationship, control or high control relationship, which also would be toxic, a manipulative relationship, or narcissistic like personality relationship. And so what happens if somebody goes in with that mindset is that you will stay because you were saying punishment. And I would say what's interesting is that word never came to me, although I will say now it was the shadow that I didn't even realize was there, Paeton. Like, you just like lifted part of my shadow. Yeah, because for me, I would have I would have stayed because the universe synchronistically brought us together, which brings us to a story of a former client that I'll bring up later. And or like, I can fix him, right? I can change this, or his criticisms are valid, which I married someone like that, right? Because that's how my family was. And more essentially, which I feel like is the catch-all. So if people listening, if I didn't hit the right one for them, right? One that they didn't resonate with, fill in the blank, people pleasing or whatever, you deserve this, whatever it is, like, this is what I try, this is what I deserve, I don't deserve better. The blanket that covers us all, or the umbrella, if you were, is your words of, I felt massively uncomfortable the whole time. And this also speaks to our collective, and I'm generalizing for people who are resonating with this, our collective way of feeling in our families of origin, or the way that we were raised. And so my entire family treated me the way that you kind of described the date. And so originally, when I would be around someone like that, even before they opened their mouth, their energetic signature would ping me. And that is literally linked with the people who, quote unquote, and it really is quote unquote, loved me. That's how home feels like. That uncomfortableness feels like home. So therefore I feel like I am attracted. It also can bring up the adrenaline and the nervous system, because this is one of the cruxes of why we're here today, is because people want to know about intuition, especially with love life. How can you tell the difference between a trigger and an intuitive hit? And so in these instances, right, it can be both. In this case, where you are, and I'm going to differentiate where you are as opposed to where you were maybe a year ago, or some other listeners might be, but you are clearly capable in that moment to catch it right before you could do something about it. You know, you were even, and this is to give you more credit. So I really don't want you to, it's more, as again, more boosting you up. But the way I see this, and I see this in my life all the time, I see this as like trying to get our heads above water when either there's like a strong undertow or the waves are really high. I think maybe we talked about this before. I'm very small, you're very small, right? And we can be picked up easily, right? We really need to dig our feet in the ground to stay grounded. And so you can see this too with where you were and where you are now and where I am. You're like, I can say, hi, and then before you can even communicate clearly, which you did literally clearly intend to, and it had not been, it hadn't even been long enough to say like you should have texted by then, like you have that grace, right? It hadn't been a week and you like ghosted him. Like it was literally like I didn't even have a chance to finish my sentence, right? So there's no fault at all there for you. And even in the moment when you saw him, you're like, I saw him and then I was gonna be, oh, and then I was too late, right? So when you're swept up like that, then you have, and again, this is totally not to shame it, it's to explain where you are in the development process. You've noticed it, but then you get in the presence and you've lost your footing. And I want to give credit where credit is due. It's a totally weird way of saying it. I can't even believe I'm saying it like this. Their job, and I say there because it doesn't even have to be manipulative people or bad people, but generally it happens much more with that type of people. Their job is to pull the rug out from underneath you. And when you feel, I just felt it because I was like, when you feel that I've switched it around, everyone's here, welcome to take this switch of that nervous system reaction, extreme butterflies that one feels, the excitement, the rush, the breathlessness. When is he going to text? I feel uncomfortable. I have to figure out what's going on here before I can leave. When we're in that place, we've already lost our ability to function in the way that we want. And that's explaining the loop that you kind of got yourself into, which I don't even want to say you got yourself into, that you were in. So you're like, oh, I almost have it. And then, right? And then you're like, oh, no, I don't got it. And you're like, oh, wait, I'm swimming. Okay, wait. And then it's like, well, I couldn't even tell him, like, I got to get my feet on the ground. So the good news is that, as I said before, like, you're noticing it 5 seconds before. There will be, as you continue to really just practice what you're already practicing, and we continue to do our work together, you'll start to have more advanced notice. And if you think about it, let's be really practical here. You're like, I saw him probably for about 5 seconds before he saw me. And even if it was less, because in those moments they can stretch out, right? Because like, it's one of those weird time perceptions. So whatever it is, how much more time, and I'm not saying like there's a perfect number, but let me just put it this way. If you had 5 more seconds, instead of 5 seconds, you had 10 seconds, you would have been out of there, girl. Right? I saw that huge smile because you were just like, you're like, that 5 seconds would have changed everything.
Yeah.
Right? I got full body chills. I feel like we just like won the lottery, right? So I think we covered a lot of the bases of like what somebody might think. And it's some form of like, the universe has something to show me here, most likely involving continuing my involvement with this person, which again, that was not your conclusion. You were wondering why, and you were not considering moving forward. So I want to make that very clear to anyone who's watching this. So I asked you to tune in before we went at it together. And so you said you did that, and tell us about that experience, would you?
Yeah. So when I tune in, I get a lot of images. My tunings in are super image heavy.
Yep.
I consider myself to be a very visually oriented person, so it makes sense. The first clear image and the strongest and the most emotionally charged for me was a hand coming out of the darkness to grab me like that.
Oh, that's so visceral and terrifying.
amazing.
Are you trying to scare away every new student? I'm just joking. So you're used to interpreting these. So I had a visceral response, but here's the thing that I will, is I don't like to give away too many of the secret recipes or anything, but what I will say for everyone is because this is one of my pet peeves, is like your symbols, which are coming through visually, they could come through any senses, are for you to interpret. So in other words, I really don't like horror or creepy things. Some people just love it. I mean, they have like horror themed weddings, right? So if you, some even listeners, I have no judgment. It's just not me. I'm friends with people like that. It's great. So it's like, you might describe that image to someone and somebody be like, "Ooh, that's ghoulishly great. I love it. I want more of that," right? Now, that's probably not how people were interpreting it. So what did you interpret from that image?
So I am a horror fan, not horror wedding fan level, but
Right.
I am a horror fan. It was I found it was scary and upsetting. I found it to be more upsetting than scary because I didn't feel immediately like under threat, like anything was going to happen to me. I felt as though that was there. I felt the way I interpreted it was, this guy is here to drag me back. I have a lot of experience in relationships and with family members of people who are emotionally abusive. And my father is a malignant narcissist, not covert at all. He was very obvious about his narcissism. And he treated me terribly, and I put up with a lot of the criticism and negging that I experienced on that date and in that dog part. I put up with that for a good deal longer in the past than I the other day. And it also brought me back to something that you told me in, I believe, our first reading, which was that I'm going to be walking around feeling all good, literally feeling the best I've ever felt in my freaking life, which I was, and I am. I'm still in a really good space.
Yeah.
And then at that moment, someone's going to come up and try to tear it up, present himself as a challenge. And he's going to be like an ex that we were talking about in that moment, or worse. And I'm feeling that this guy is worse. My ex that we were talking about during that reading a year ago never threatened to kill me.
Right.
This guy definitely seemed worse, but he was not someone, like, I guess even 10 minutes into the date, I was considering as a viable option.
You're saying in 10 minutes in, you knew it was not right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I knew. And so, yeah, that's what that very strong image made me think of. Like, this is the shadow of the past coming up, with the intention of, taking me like I had been taken before. But also, on the flip side of that coin, the silver lining to that cloud, allowing me to really appreciate how far I've come. And that was just like amazing.
That makes my heart like cry tears of joy. I'm so happy to hear that. And that's something that, that's my greatest wish for everyone, and especially you, that you can recognize and celebrate yourself. That's just amazing. That's just so. Okay. So before I say anything, react to what you said. So how does that explanation, as it were, feel for you?
It feels really good. It feels like it fits. It feels like something that, I mean, it's part of it's one of the reasons why people, keep a journal, right? You have to remind yourself of how far you've come so that you can, one, prevent from going back, but also really appreciate you know, the hard work that you've done. And you know, I every time I get, you know, like a reminder or an indication or something that reminds me of how much I've been improved spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and all of that, I appreciate it. I'm able to take that moment to celebrate myself. And I think this was a very strong opportunity that was presented to me in order to do that, to really perceive and appreciate my progress.
Was it always easy for you to celebrate yourself? And if not, what do you feel like helped get you there? You're all ready for your vacation. It's really hectic getting here, but you're seated in your airplane seat, looking out the window, and you hear the pilot come on the intercom. Good day, everyone. It's a beautiful day outside, 71 and sunny. As you're aware, to get to where we're going, we need to fly over that mountain range, and sometimes there can be a little bit of turbulence. I'm about 80% sure we'll get there safely. So buckle up, relax, and enjoy your flight. I know that sounds like an absurd situation, but when I put this in context of trusting yourself and trusting your intuition, and I ask people on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most, how much do you trust yourself? 8 is a very high score when asking people. So if you fall on a 2 to 4 range, you're totally not alone. Now picture this other scenario. You're out to lunch with a friend, and the friend says that they've been having a really difficult time learning French. You ask the logical question, are you taking a class? And their answer is, well, I'm taking Spanish. Guess what? If you want to trust yourself deeply, if you want to have an easier time making decisions, break through blocks, connect with people, know who to connect with when, there's a class for that. I've actually helped thousands of people truly trust themselves in uncertainty, in times of doubt or fear, shame or guilt. And I have a free masterclass called Intuition 101, How to Trust Yourself in Uncertain Times, that will tell you everything you need to know in order to learn to trust yourself. The link is in the show notes. However, you can also go to howtotrustyourintuition.com, all spelled out. Right. Did it always come naturally? And if not, what did you do to get yourself to a place where you can see this as an area to stop and look at your growth and then actually celebrate it? I mean, when you said celebrate, you literally did it in a way that indicates not only is it a little bit more natural for you, but it also is embodied, and you were embodied when you said it, because you just said, you literally, I don't want to touch my mic, you literally put your hands on your body, and you're like, and it was like this gentle, nourishing hug, and you're like, and you're basically telling you were embodying, congratulating yourself, is what you were doing. So I just wanted to congratulate you on that, even, so yeah. So the question is, what did you do to be able to get there?
Yeah, so I didn't even notice that, but that's something that I do a lot now, and it feels very good to be able to do that. So the answer to your first question is no. It was absolutely not easy for a long time, or did not come naturally at all for me to celebrate myself, congratulate myself, compliment myself, that sort of thing. Just the spiritual degradation and just the utter demolishing of self-esteem and sense of self that comes as a result of childhood narcissistic abuse is just all encompassing. It seeps into your freaking bones. And so I didn't find anything in myself worth celebrating. You and my therapist would say often, and would encourage me, celebrate yourself, congratulate yourself, all of that stuff. It felt super awkward and cringy, to use the word, at first, for sure. But from experience, like from my experience giving up alcohol, getting sober and whatnot, I knew that anything good for me, any change that's good for me is probably going to be uncomfortable and awkward in the beginning. And it's just about getting through that and continuing to do it until it doesn't feel, awkward anymore.
Yeah. When a kid is learning something, right? Like there's all sorts of like I'm doing it already. And like you never express that explicitly, right? But like the cringe factor is like celebrate myself, like come on, it just feels like so weird, like and it is. And that's also a huge form of and common feeling that we have when we get into embodiment. So that's amazing. Yes, great for congratulating yourself and just oh, so that was the first image with the hand. Were there other images that told you to like stay away or anything like that?
Yeah, a snake and a badger.
Okay.
I get a lot of animals.
Yep. So I'll speak very bluntly. And this is just, chiding you a little bit. A snake and a badger mean nothing to me.
Oh yeah. Well,
so what the heck do those mean?
I thought, okay. I thought you were asking for, sorry, like more of the imagery. I'm fascinated with the imagery, pardon me. But
of course.
Yeah,
it's
just
beautiful.
Images that indicate ill intentions, aggression, and sort of insidiousness, nefarious intentions, that sort of thing.
Okay. So just to, again, break it down for anyone who's listening, we don't really even know where we're going to use this yet. But you and I will negotiate that in a way that feels good for you, of course. But, and it's good to remember too, is that a snake for some people, more people I would think than would have a horror wedding, is beauty, right? Is knowledge, is experience, is wisdom, right? And to some people, it's slithery Slytherin, right? So it's right. So that's why I was like, what does a snake and a badger mean? Because I have no idea.
Understood. Sometimes I need the reminder because again, I'm fascinated with these images. It makes me feel it's pretty amazing to me that I see them and I get excited about them. But
that's not a bad thing. Have you started the big leap?
Yes, I started and finished the audiobook and I'm on my second listen.
Oh my God. Okay. Oh, okay. So then can you explain what happened from that perspective, please?
So I have been really, really focused on the concept of the upper limit problem and the way that it plays into and factors into so many different like thought patterns that I experience or have experienced and even some behaviors and stuff like that. And it just makes so much, and I have a better framework for understanding why things seem to have to go so poorly when I'm feeling so good. And when things are going super well. And it resonated with me so much. I don't want to get into everything that he mentions in the book, but that core belief system, that false belief that I'm fundamentally flawed, which came from my abusive upbringing, and cannot be happy in this arena, that arena, whatever. My family were quite successful financially, so I've always felt like I could do just as well or better, and in fact that was encouraged. So not in that realm, but in the realm of like love and romance for sure, and also just like general fulfillment and spiritual wellness. I never felt like that was available to me because I am too flawed. Yes.
Your whole family's in debt with that. So
yeah, exactly. And I even wrote down one of my really deep core false beliefs that I had never verbalized or really like completely thought out before, but I just sat down with myself and meditated, and I wrote out in I typed it out in red font. I cannot be loved because there is something fundamentally wrong and repulsive about me. Like that word explicitly had never occurred to me, but once it popped into my head, I was like, that's so right. I have felt, regardless of the reality of who I am and of the situation, I have felt my whole life like that I was repulsive, and anyone who's worth anything, who's worth their salt, is not going to want to have anything to do with me. And I've thought a lot about, and been in therapy for years and years. I thought a lot about my trauma and my upbringing, and this is a new revelation for me that what it was I was treated poorly in a lot of ways, but one of the main undercurrents was a projection that I was repulsive. And I believe, honestly, that my father was repulsed by himself, and he projected that onto me.
A very good point. I think you're right. Yes,
for sure.
I also want to say, for me, because I just, again, to generalize to anyone who might hear this, I was I feel similar. For me, it was some people, as you said, some people would say they're fundamentally flawed. Some people would say there's something wrong with them. Some people would say they're broken, they can't be fixed. So those are different expressions of a similar emotion. Everyone has their own unique experience. Mine was interesting because I can't say that I felt those things, not even that I was flawed per se, but I was always thrown by really by the gaslighting that I was doing something wrong. So it was, I didn't even have a belief that that I could never get anything right. I did not have that. But what I would do is I would constantly attract people who and they've done I've heard so much about this recently, and they've done studies, but like attract people who just no matter what, if they know what they're talking about, if they don't, if they're lying, if they're telling the truth, if they actually hold that power or they don't, they just come in with the air of authority. And then it gets sometimes people like us with our background just all of a sudden in check, like we just fall in line. And so again, my whole family treated me like that. So I didn't think I was fundamentally flawed. It's just that that's how people showed they cared, by telling me I wasn't doing it right. So I just want to say, same pattern that showed up, and similar, self-esteem stuff. And the truth is, in both situations, is that truthfully, it's not us, it's them. As you said, it was them projecting. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. Yeah, thank you. So here we go. What if the upper limit problem was not a problem, and it was actually your secret weapon? And I say this is not what if. It is true, we'll talk about it, but I'm posing it as a what if, and might as well be, because it's always going to happen, right?
Yeah, that makes me think of this exercise in the book that I have been practicing ever since I listened to that portion, which is about worry and worry thoughts, which is one of the main ways that people can upper limit themselves, keep themselves from, developing further, achieving more, being happier, being more in love, all that stuff, things to, keep them tamped down to what they're used to. And worrying, has always been big big for me. You know, lots
Oh,
of
you're human? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, lots of things that my mind can create to worry about. And the exercise is all about identifying, releasing the worry feeling, and finding through, you know, a moment of stillness, or more than a moment, however long it takes, finding the positive thing that that worry thought or that upper limit bug is pointing to. Like, why is this coming up? This, and it points and it becomes in that moment a signpost toward some positive thing that's happening in your life, because the upper limit problem only comes up, or the bug only occurs when something is going well. It's like, so what's going well in my life that I'm not, you know, giving you know, proper attention to? I'm not, you know, I'm not super cognizant of right now. And then it causes me to it leads me to sit and sort of like ponder that.
Okay, that I like that. It makes sense. How would that apply to this situation?
Like this situation in particular, I'm not sure, because I feel like the upper limit bug was coming up not through worry, but through people pleasing and going to the dog park and being told that horrendous thing that
I'm sorry for smirking, because it is horrendous. That's why I'm smirking. Yes.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Yeah, I'm smirking too. But yeah, being told that horrendous thing that sort of like didn't ruin, but soiled the rest of my day.
Right. So you said you didn't know. Good. Well, I will say you already did give part of the answer, which is it was a chance for you to look back and celebrate yourself. So I did kind of give you a little bit of a trick question there, just to let you know. It wasn't intentional to like try to trick you, but you did already partially answer it. It'll give us the answer if we sort of zoom out and we come back to the question of what if it wasn't an upper limit problem or bug, because I associate bugs with, you know, bugs and systems and stuff, right? What if it wasn't a problem? What if it was a superpower? Right? And you don't have to answer that, because that's going where no Paeton has gone before. Okay, this Paeton hasn't gone before. Okay, so this is really cool, and I also want to say for you or anyone who's listening who is on board with this, this is something that we really have to be cautionary about when we are sharing or supporting or not supporting or trying to help other people in our life, especially when we're not being paid to do so in a container like we are now, because it can be misconstrued. And if somebody is not asking for your help, I would encourage you not to put your nose in there. Quite honestly, that's like the line. And we'll kind of see why. So, for instance, I have seen you throughout the past year, I've seen you go through this. And when you hit the low, I couldn't just be in there and be like, well, it's just because you were feeling so good that you had to feel so shitty and had to have that shitty thing happen to you. Like, you can't do that, right? It's not okay. It's not okay. So I'm really glad we're here. We get to be compassionate. When you know, you know. Let's take it back and to your real story. I wrote down your words. It was amazing. And you described it again. You said the word so many times. It was so great. Okay. I had a fantastic day and a fantastic tattoo. And I wanted to go to this amazing park, to this amazing bookstore. And you literally said I was full of life. And I'm like, yeah, girl. I mean, I'm literally quoting back. This is great. So now you had no idea. This is just moving forward. This is an exercise with a real life example. If we know that the upper limit law says when I'm feeling amazing and full of life, having a fantastic day, looking forward to going through a fantastic park on the way to a fantastic bookstore. You see where we're going now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Law says that Mr. Clawhand, or as the book says, right? The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, just to clarify, we haven't already, is that when you reach your maximum amount of your desired feeling, joy, connectedness, health, financial stability, feeling safe, feeling free, feeling expansive, feeling loved, any of the feelings joyous that you would like to feel. When you get to a place which you are usually asking for, everyone's usually asking for more
Contentment.
yes, thank you. Thank you. People are looking for more of that, right? And that's what he starts with the whole book off of. He's like, oh, I was feeling so good, put my feet up on my desk, and then all of a sudden, what's up with my kids? It doesn't have to be you run into someone at the park. It doesn't have to be an awkward situation like that. It could be something like all of a sudden you have a stomach ache. It could be you stub your toe. It could be the neighbors rocking out their music too loud. It could be you thinking you missed a deadline. It could be your existential crisis that's always on your mind. Maybe you should have gone to grad school. Like it could be anything, right? It could be like, oh, I should be writing. Anything, internal, external, will come in. Will, it's the law, will come in. So if you know this, and your goal is to push your, so like we can say with joy or happiness or love, but like we can even say bank account, right? If you want to get past 5,000 to 6,000, you've never had 5,000 in your bank account before, something will come in to make you feel more constricted, more worried. So if your goal is to get to 7,000 or 8,000 in joy or healing, and know this is coming up, now I will hand this over to you. I have the answer. You don't have to work too hard, think you're going to get it right. But I just want to see, like, you're having your fantastic day. You have this awareness. And you're like, wow, I know what's going to happen next. So now what? What's different now in this moment in time for you?
That I know that something is going to come in to rain on the parade. There's the opportunity then to prepare in whatever way is necessary, appropriate, or possible.
Okay. So this, now we've got more time working together outside of this session. So although this is really the answer of our goal that we're working on, we're like, how do you feel the authentic feels and basically manifest what you want to manifest, right? So first of all, what will happen in that time, and it's a very big practice, right? Just like where you come from, we're making baby steps there. What will happen at that time is you will still be able to, with practice, you in a logical mind, you would think, okay, I'm in the park feeling good. And we're also talking about New York City too, right? So let's bring it to like a practical place that most Americans would think of, right? If they were to go to a primary, not necessarily New Yorkers, saying Americans, like they're in New York, right? Oh my God, I'm in a park. Something's going to threaten me. So you might think that you're going to shrink, right? First of all, you're just enacting your own upper limit there, right? That's not the goal. You already missed the goal if you do that, right? So what you get to do is you get to do everything that you were doing. You're like, I was having a fantastic day. I thought about what other things I wanted to do that were fantastic. And you said I did a good job of getting back and keep doing this. And then I went to the park and I had to do this. And you're building yourself up, right? So you know something's coming and, right? Not but. We're in an improv group now. You know something's coming and your job is to, this is so good, finally come to the definition of this, laugh in the face of chaos. So when this has to do with other people, it depends on what you view. It could be more difficult or it can be easier. I find it easier when you know and you practice a little bit. I find it easier because it's outside of myself and I can basically laugh at that person, right? So we already know in practical terms with the shift that we gave you in this rewind, would you agree that you most likely would have seen him in advance in that, or more likely you would have seen him with a little bit more notice and would have twirled around out to another exit of the park to somewhere else, right? Because you would have been a little bit more alert. The thing is that, and this is going to be the tightrope that you get to learn to walk. Tightrope is a good example. You might fall off on either side as you're learning. It's something that can be done, and this is what you're learning. But like while you're there, being like, wow, I feel so good, and I'm not going to lose my footing, because that's ultimately what's happening, right? We wind up losing our footing, and that's why you've tuned into your intuition. You've done all this practice, and that's why you're almost there. Your intuition catches it because you practice and you continue to practice. But it's just a little bit too late because your feet weren't necessarily on the ground. But it's possible, and it's actually imperative to do for us to be successful in life in the way we want to go, right? Because we want to embody the money and the love and the health and the relationships and whatever it is we want, the success, right? So in this case, I can, you and I already, let's say I'm a little birdie on your shoulder, like we already see him and we go, ha ha ha, universe, that was so funny. Look at that guy. I ain't gonna fall for that one. He makes me feel that shit. So I'm gonna, and you don't even have to slink. You can twirl. And I'm actually literally talking about like twirling or twisting as you go out. Sometimes that really shifts, and you can just twist your way out of the park and just quickly move out and be like, okay, cool. And then you're a little bit more on, let's say, coasting. I wrote down, even though you did the work, you didn't like automatically get back to that blissful feeling all day. I think that's what we all want, but like obviously that's not going to happen. But when I say on this upper limit, you get there and then you can like sort of coast. And that's a thing with anything. If we really think about it, you can think about it when you're losing weight or gaining weight. You can think about it when you're learning to drive a car or any other vehicle that goes fast, even like an e-bike or something. As you even said with embodiment, right? When you're practicing it at first 20 miles per hour feels really fast, right? At first, you might notice the first 5 pounds, you might not. But then when you get to that new weight or you get to that new speed, it's the new normal. And that's what we want. We want to keep $7,000 in the bank and then eventually have $9,000 in the bank. We want to have a dating relationship, and then some of us want it to turn into an exclusive, intimate, long-term relationship, maybe a marriage, maybe a family, right? It is just the baby steps of that. So with all of this, it's the same thing. So it's not returning to this woohoo, but what I will say is you are there, and then it's going to keep happening. Because then when you're there, and this is cool, when you're there, you're sending out the higher vibes into your future. And what's going to continue to happen is more of those hands are going to come and try to grab you. And you get to do the rainbow hour exercise or whatever to breathe into it. Internal stuff is a little bit more difficult, but as you said, there's lots of exercises in the book, including rainbow hour, which we all know, that can just break you out of it when you realize this. Now, that is a mind shift that is helpful. But I'll tell you, it's not always possible at all. I don't think for any human that I know, for us to be feeling so good in a certain way and then to be so alert, right? It's not always possible. It is possible, but it's not always. So when now that you have this knowledge, it was going to shift. So let's put you in the real scenario that happened. You couldn't get away. You didn't have that extra 5 seconds. But in this scenario, you do have the knowledge, okay? So now you know what this is. And now you can even say, wow, this is awesome. And you're going to shorten it to like 2 minutes because now you know. Now you have this knowledge. You know he's coming. You couldn't get away. You stepped in the dog poo. Like maybe that's what it is. Like you actually stepped in dog poo, right? Like that's a fucking shitty situation. All right. So if your upper limit, and this has happened, you know, you're feeling so good and then you step in dog poo. I mean, I'm sure most people have had that happen. You can say this is amazing because what this means is what? What does it mean?
It means that something's going to come along to derail, and
No. When the thing comes around, when the derailment comes around, you've stepped in poo.
Okay.
What does that mean?
That means that things have been going very well. And
Good.
yeah.
End of story. So you have a sign from the universe that your life is going amazing. The universe says to you, your life is going amazing. You hear those words. Do you celebrate those words? Do you say, yes, things are going amazing? That's great news, right? That is the only reason why it happened. Well, there's a million reasons you processed it correctly. Okay. So I won't negate that. That's great. But even when you don't catch it in advance, you can say, oh, wow, instead of beating yourself up, but didn't catch it in advance. Like the only reason why this happened is because I'm so amazing. And then you've just turned it into your superpower. Now, imagine you can't get away on time. You run smack into him. And you know the only reason why you smacked into him is because you're so amazing. That Paeton, tell me if you disagree. That Paeton's going to say, hey, Mr. Creepy Hand. Maybe not in your mind, but in your heart. Hey, Mr. Creepy Hand. He's like, whoa. And he's going to be attracted to it. And he's going to try to blah, blah, blah. He's going to do whatever. He might even actually say something super fucking nice to you because that is what flips, just by the way. That's what the narcissist will do. You're used to them treating you shitty. When you let go of that, then they start treating you amazing. Okay. So maybe he starts treating you amazing. He's like, oh my God, your hair and glasses look amazing. You looked like that before, but I didn't even notice. I'm so sorry. I didn't even notice. And you're just like, whoa, you know, maybe it's the stars and there was a solar alignment before that made him miss it, you know, whatever. So you're just like, you know, if you don't realize it, but instead you're like, hey, Mr. Creepy Hand in your head, you know, and the real Paeton in that instance is going to show up and say, and inside, you're going to say, I'm doing so amazing. I'm going to get the fuck out of here right away. I don't care what the fuck comes out of my mouth. And you might even say, this is not what you would say, but he might be like, whoa, you're hurt. And you might be like, I guess the moon really is made out of ring cheese. And you crawl out of there in a spider crawl backwards, you know? You're into theater. I'm a little bit into theater. But you could say, I got to go walk my dog. You don't have a dog. You got to say, I got to go meet a friend. Maybe you have no friends. Doesn't matter. The universe will give you something when you realize what's actually happening in front of you and that it's reason to celebrate. And if the only reason to celebrate is that's the only way you're going to surpass your upper limit. And in this case, isn't it awesome to laugh at Creepy Hand? Because that is their kryptonite. So now, even if you don't catch it, you can celebrate. Just so you know, you're doing really well with celebrating where you are with this. So I'm just reminding you that that's pertinent here as well. And you and I get to continue the work of, okay, how do I do what we just said? And then also process how shitty it was that this person did this fucking racist, misogynist thing to me, right? Step. But really, it's just doing what you're doing, you know, setting aside some time and getting support and calling a friend and a therapist and processing it that way and knowing that you're capable of handling it. And easier said than done, but you are doing those things. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes total sense. And things that I was already kind of feeling, but really brought it to the forefront.
Do you see how it is your superpower now?
Yes.
Yeah. And it really can really swath the, is it me or them? Because you already know it's not you.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, we really do have to wrap it up.
Okay.
We will speak very soon.
You're amazing.
Awesome.
Bye, Orla. Bye-bye.
Oh, so cute. See ya.
How to Trust Your Intuition, the podcast, is written, produced, and created by me, your host, Betsy LaFay. Music provided by Ben Talmy. If you don't want to be like that pilot that is 80% sure you'll get to your next destination safely, and you want to take the right class to learn the right language, and guess what? Intuition is a language. Head over to howtotrustyourintuition.com. I hope this podcast has been helpful to you. If it has, please forward it to a friend who you think it could also make a difference for. There's something that you can do for me and everyone else who listens to this podcast as well. If you hit subscribe, you'll never miss another episode. It'll also help the show get to other people. And of course, I know you've heard other podcast hosts say this before, but it's totally true. If you leave us a 5-star rating and a review, it helps other people like you discover this podcast. We all need to learn to trust our intuition. So, hit subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and write a little blurb while you're there. Your intuition will thank you.